It's Dr. Tennant's Verbal Highs. Let's start the show with Lewis Tennant. Here we go. Guests and interviews that you're looking for with creators, innovators, and so much more. For all episodes and further info, verbalhighs.com is the place to go.
Been too intellectual, Lewis.
Yeah.
Gotta remember that I'm just a guitar player from Timaru. Anybody here from Timaru?
Welcome to Dr. Tennant's Verbal Highs, a podcast podcasted from Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland, New Zealand. Currently beaming out to you from another lockdown. For those, I mean, look, shivers. I have friends living all sorts of places that have been through lockdowns, and I'll cop to the fact that I don't follow who's in lockdown when. So if you're outside of Auckland, you may not be aware. Well, if you're in New Zealand, I'd be surprised if you're not aware. If you're outside of New Zealand, you may not be aware that on Sunday or Saturday night last week, very out of the blue, felt more out of the blue for some reason than the earlier ones, because it was like the next day, the next morning, 6 a.m, 7-day lockdown. We have a level system. We've got 4 levels. 4 is the deepest. It's the deepest COVID level. That's the turn everything off, switch everything off level. We're at level 3, but that's switch everything off enough that I'm at home and teaching through a screen again, which was not great timing. Being week 1 back for students at the uni I work at, but hey, they did it last year, we did it last year, and that's going okay. Very muggy here as well, just to add to the post-apocalyptic feel. I've turned the fan off while I record. I've shut the doors, and so we've only got a little bit of time, folks, before I melt like the tigers in. What was that in? Little Black Sambo. Little Black Sambo. Goodness. That's a book from the past. Is that where the tigers turned into butter? Anyway, had a really great conversation with this gentleman. I try and do these shows. I sort of imagine, like, because some of them are a little bit, you could argue, indulgent, because I know my guest from a quite formative period of life there, which we discussed for both of us, where essentially a bunch of us lived in the late 90s in Wellington, and probably the same 2 blocks, like sort of like 1/3 of a Pac-Man level. That was we didn't go out of it. I must have done shopping outside of there from time to time. I know I'd go to my parents for dinner from time to time, and must have gone to the beach a couple of times, but no, pretty much 2 blocks of Cuba Street, and we discussed that. But anyway, back to that. You might go, well, I didn't live on 2 blocks of Cuba Street in Wellington at a very particular period of time. Why would I have interest in listening to this? I always try and think about these. Like, I listen to a load of conversations, like those comedian podcasts in the UK and US and so on, with people and eras and references I have no knowledge of. But if the conversation's good, I always enjoy them and sort of pick stuff up and learn stuff. So thanks, Gabes. We discussed third non face-to-face in a room looking at each other conversation I've done. There's been Stephen Gallagher, which was episode 81. There has been James Mehari, which was episode 94. And now this one, Gabe's was via Zoom, via country Victoria in Australia there. And I've got to say, I've heard I'm going to toot my horn here. I'm horn tooting. I've listened to a lot of big podcasts, big overseas podcasts. I'm doing a lot of Zoom calls, but they doesn't seem like they've done some basic Googling for how to make that audio experience a whole lot better than what they're coming out with. So aside from a couple of moments, there's no echo, there's no delay, there's no uncanny valley in this conversation. The only thing that hints at it is the classic slight absence of lows in Gabe's frequency. The old school telephony effect, if you will. Okay. I was going to do a list of what we chat about, but I'll just pick and choose from that in order to shamelessly plug episodes. Otis Chamberlain came up. I did an episode with him a way back. You can find that on my website, verbalhighs.com. Darren Watson gets a brief mention. He was episode 91. And Dave Bench. Just a fleeting moment in time on this episode. He's episode 54. Okay. The conversation I had with Aaron Tokina is episode 87. Gabes and I discuss Aaron, of course. Yeah, so the conversation is very long, so I'll get out of your way. Like and share the show Verbal Highs podcast on Facebook, Verbal Highs on Twitter. Subscribe, please. Like these small things. This is a passion project that actually takes a lot of time, energy, and budget. Subscribe, rate, please, and leave a comment wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, lovely to see the ratings and comments slowly growing on Apple Podcasts. I have a website, verbalhighs.com. And there you can also find something else I'm tapping away at intermittently, the New Zealand podcast directory. To my knowledge, the longest list and resource of New Zealand-based and themed podcasts out there. Did I give you the URL for that? verbalhighs.com, New Zealand podcast. Shouts outs to Gabes, the charismatic raconteur with a great mind that I remember, and it's nice when your memories of interacting with people are accurate. It was a hoot, mate. A bloody hoot.
This is Dr. Tannen's Verbal Highs.
It's the output level. It's the input level. Is it too... Hey!
Can you... I can't see you. Are you going to leave...
Hang on. I've got to start the video. Sorry.
What a... what a time to be alive, mate. Fucking hell.
I just want to play your arcade.
Yeah, it's good.
I just want to go straight... Immediately, I was like, Street Fighter. Street Fighter 2. Street Fighter 2.
It's actually got older games in there. It's like before our era. It's like kind of...
What, Gallagher?
Yeah, Gallagher, Ms. Pac-Man. But you can put...
Space Invaders.
I don't know if you know, you can, like, that's actually got an emulator of the old actual boards in it, but you can basically put, like, a PC in there and download every game ever.
Yeah, like have 5,000 games.
How are you, man?
Yeah, good. Really good.
You look like you're in a hostage video for some reason. The way you framed yourself.
Well, the last time I did the interview with The Rock.
Yeah.
And, which you contacted me and said it was really great, and I'm sure, Mike Garvey would be really, like, stoked to hear that. But when you watch me in the video, there's too much natural sunlight.
I don't post any video for this, so
okay.
My bottom line is, like, I don't know if you listen to a lot of podcasts, man, but even before lockdown, I had a rule that I only wanted to talk to people in person, because it was like kind of not only that intimacy of being in the room together, but also when you get those echoes and stuff, it's a bit androidy. It's a bit like Uncanny Valley. But I've done a couple of them, and if you just do a bit of looking into the settings and stuff, like, this is fine. There's no delay with you that I can hear.
Good.
Yeah, you're the same. Hey, so we're just straight into it. I'm already recording, right?
Yeah.
Great.
I would assume so. I would hope so, unless you're going to go, and 3, 2, 1, and action. Mate,
it's all content these days. So I think the last time we actually were knocking about, mate, I was thinking about it would probably have been 98, and then I actually lived in Melbourne for about 6 or 7 years, and you wouldn't remember this, but we passed, like, ships in the night once.
On Carlisle Street at the corner of Carlisle and Chapel.
Oh, you remember?
Yeah, you were going for the tram, man.
Oh, right.
You were like, you were almost like running backwards, hailing the tram, and then as you did this maneuver and turned around, I was like, oh, it's Lewis. And and then you waved at me, and then the tram arrived, and you just turned around and you were like, "Hey man, how's it going? Good to see you. Sorry I can't talk. Got to keep going." And that was, yep.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was the last time I think I saw you.
I'm touched, mate. I feel seen. I didn't think you'd remember. You actually remember more than I did.
I remember everything.
Hey, man, so I was thinking about today, like, it was awesome because I just messaged you about that, like, just saying, hey, it's been years. Watch that talk. I can't remember what I said. It was like, real interesting, glad to see you well. And then you actually said, let's chat on a podcast episode, which I was stoked about.
Well, because you had done something that Mike had done in 2014. You had, he spoke with Aaron.
Yeah.
Just one-on-one, and maybe even over the phone.
Yeah.
The quality of Aaron's voice sounds like he's talking to him on the phone, I think.
Yeah.
And then I thought, well, you're the guy that talked to Aaron before he passed.
Yeah.
And I just started thinking, and I was like talking to him a couple of weeks before that, and we were trying to put Weta back together for the 20th anniversary, which became a tribute to Aaron.
Yeah.
Because he passed away.
We've gone deep into that quickly, but I was going to ask, I'll talk about that later on.
I can get deep very quick.
But what I will say about that episode, man, is I haven't shared a lot publicly about it. And I said to you, actually, I mean, what I said to you in the message, like, I'm not by nature kind of a woo-woo guy. I'm kind of like a sciencey, rationally guy.
Yeah.
But Aaron is always someone who's had that, and look, I'm preaching to the choir, and even, fans who didn't know him, he's got that spiritual quality about him, man. There's just no frickin' denying it. So not only did he connect really, like, quite honestly and in quite a relaxed way that day that a lot of people said can be unusual with him, it really deeply affected me, bro. This is before he passed a week later. Like, he actually said a bunch of stuff that reconciled a bunch of stuff to me about creativity and the world, and so the whole thing was just like it was one of the most intense weeks I've had, and I hadn't even seen the guy for 25 years. I didn't know him as well as you guys, but he kind of
used to be in a van with him every day dealing with that.
Just to cap it off, man. He kind of gave
reborn and cleansed every day.
He gave me this weird fucking gift, and then he died a week later. Like, I recorded on the Saturday. You won't know any of this. I recorded on a Saturday afternoon with him. We're both like, out of lockdown, and I get the news a Saturday later. So full on, man.
I was unfortunately outside on my property, which is country Victoria.
Yeah.
And we'd been trying to get this Weta thing going, and we had to find the contract for the album, and no one could get a copy, so we were looking at trying to go through. I asked Aaron, could he please contact Warner directly, and if they might have a copy in the archives, because at the time, Aaron was, the person you would most associate with Weta, being the lead singer and the star, and the face. And I thought that his weight, he might be able to get that contract from Warner's, and we could read through the contract, and because I've got to backpedal a little bit and thank Doug Bear, who said to me in passing, he said, "Oh mate, don't forget, Weta's Geographica is going to be 20 years old sometime this year." It's like February, maybe January, February. I saw him last year, and he goes, "Don't forget, I can do 500 pressings on LP from Europe, 128 gram. It'll be amazing. You can have all the artwork you want. You can make whatever you want. You can sell them for whatever you want." And
who's this guy? Is he from Warner's?
No. Doug Bear owns Rare Records, and
Gotcha.
he does he does this vinyl pressing for all these independent Australian bands.
Gotcha.
And a lot of bands also who are like, like Melbourne bands that are now experiencing their 20th anniversaries.
Yeah.
But obviously we were with, major, so in the end, our label stepped in, and that's why it's become number 3 last week.
Congratulations!
In New Zealand. Well, it's not here in Australia. I'm here in Australia, and it's just like every day goes by, and our presence, or Weta's presence, I should say, it's not probably like it is in New Zealand, where you're probably hearing the band a lot.
And Aaron kind of like, obviously over here there was a presence forever tied to him with where his career went on from there. So there's that sort of recognition and lineage. So we got to reconcile, because you're saying that you were trying to track down paperwork. Sounds like you're kind of trying to dot your I's and your T's. Like, if we're going to do this again, we need to make sure what's going on contractually with Warner's. Is that kind of what you mean?
That is absolutely correct.
Yeah.
No one in the band had a copy of our contract with Warner.
It was left on the Picton Ferry after that Nelson gig.
Yeah, just threw it on the fire. I needed some fire, paper to light the fire.
And then at the Warner's end, was it like one of those things where it's 20 years ago the band finished on up, so pre-computers no one kept records? Like, did it not turn up?
No, actually a hard copy came from Sydney in the archives, and some poor girl, Tina I think, had to go down to some dusty, room at the bottom of the Warner corporation sort of building, I don't know, because it took weeks. She must have been looking around for a while, and she found the original copy.
She was like 1.5 years old when it was signed, like she'd be like,
and she would have been walking around going, what the hell am I doing this for? What's a Weta anyway?
Yeah.
What is it? WETTER or W?
And so you sorry to cut you off there. You're going to finish that one off.
Yeah. So we got the contract, and we discovered that our mastering, which this was the thing that we needed to know to move forward with production of the LPs, was the master tape, which is just basically the final cut of Geographica, was whether the years had expired and we had ownership or not, and they had not expired.
Right.
So that's where...
Is it like Scientology? Did you sign a 1 billion-year contract, or...?
It's not like... It's the old style contract. It's not like a 360, which a lot of the younger stars do now, where the record company basically takes mostly everything, including merchandise and all that, and ticket sales and and live ticket sales, and we were in the old deal where you just units, quote unquote. Yeah, they dealt with the records, and they got most of the money for record sales, and then we got all the money for performance. We got all the money for merchandise. Whereas today, if you were to look at, one of the pop stars of today, who's a major star, they're probably only getting 20% of their merch, 10% of their record sales, and they get probably half their performance.
So what was the bottom line, man? Like what was the outcome once you found it? Sweet, good to go.
Well, yeah, no, actually, like I said, it was the day Aaron passed. I had left my phone inside. I was out on the property, and I was cutting gorse with a chainsaw.
Yeah,
clearing all this gorse, and I'd been at it for 5 or 6 hours, and I'd done trailer loads, and I got back inside, and I had a shower, and I changed, which is, just I'd been working hard.
Yeah.
And then the phone was just like, it had been going crazy, and I'm like, what's going on? And there's calls from Clinton Dinhaya, there's calls from Steve James.
And phones don't even really ring these days, bro.
Well, no, it had been inside.
Yeah.
While I'd been outside.
Yeah.
And whenever I go outside to work, I don't take my phone, obviously, because it might slip out of my pocket and some kangaroo will steal it. But yeah, I got
put it in my pouch.
I got the news about 6 or 7 p.m. Australia time.
Yep.
And it was just like, this sucks, And then it continued to suck for quite some time, And we just kind of got to that point where it was obvious that, Weta were going to reform. The 20th anniversary was happening.
Oh, I didn't know you were going to reform as well, right? Yeah.
And that, obviously, of course. I mean, that was the butter I put on the bread to Aaron.
Yeah.
In conversation was, bro, we go out there, we can get some of these LPs made and make some money, and and he goes, because Aaron and I, we got kids, so it's like, how am I going? I need to get some more money. You're always looking for more money. So I was like, Doug Beer, 20th anniversary, more money. And then Aaron says to me, he goes, you know what, bro? You know what we're going to do better than that? We're going to get them to print a whole bunch of LPs that will go out on the road, and then we'll sell them out the back of the truck, eh? But I think he meant it. I really do. And I think he would have done that because with the Hori Buzz, he had gone to every town in New Zealand and developed a relationship with the entire nation.
You know what I love that he did during those tours, man, is he would play, he'd just go and jam out something like really solid Stevie Wonder covers or, just classic pub stuff if the band stuff wasn't, if a venue or a bunch of people wasn't going to carry just with that music over the night. So he was doing this kind of combination of kind of classic show pub band with, his own written and produced material. I don't know, man. Something about that I really liked because it's like the antithesis of the kind of like, ride or die, it's my shit or nothing else kind of mentality,
Well, I think a lot of people don't know back in those Wally days when we were hanging and, we had our little crew. There was our little bubble that we lived in. But, probably a lot of people don't know is that every weekend Aaron would go out and play in a covers band. That's how he made money.
Yeah, and he had that history of busking standards as well,
he busked with his father.
Yeah.
As a teenager. But then, in his 20s, he was working as a professional musician, playing covers. Because I remember seeing him all on Gusney Street when he was living with
Moo and the boys in that cotton store flat.
No. He was living with Tom Larkin, Sarah.
Oh yeah,
yeah, and he was like. He was walking out the door with his guitar, but he was dressed real slick. He had these nice pants. He had a really nice shirt on. And I just thought, he looked like the classic, like the wedding band.
Yeah.
Kind of look.
Yeah.
That nice shoes. And I'd never seen him like that before. And I just went, what's going on? And he goes, going to a gig, bro, go and get some money. So after that, I realised that he really was the working musician. He wasn't just like playing with Bong Master, jamming out with those boys, and then working on Weta, trying to get that happening. the opera came along a little later. But he was still like getting the bread and butter that way as well, like just going down Courtney Place and playing to the bars on Courtney Place that,
great way to keep your chops up and to be constantly riding the bike performer, man. It's like,
we never stopped.
That's right. Stopped. So, to cap off that day, and maybe we'll come back to it towards the end, man. It sounds like you, like me. I don't know what Aaron knew of his health, but I think what you described, that I kind of had it when I heard it, was like a whoomph, one of those, when you know what I mean? That's not even that's what it was. It was like, what? And it but it was unlike
your heart and your mind both sink.
Look, it's a tragedy either way, but unlike when someone's been sick for a while or whatever, and there's a lead up, that's part of that. What I'm trying to express, it was just kind of what, Yeah. It
was such a shock.
As I say, we'll come back because when I chatted to Aaron, I really purposefully didn't talk a lot about Weta because all of the sort of stuff I looked at and read leading on up that he's been asked over the years is inevitably that, But I thought we can be a little, we can get indulgent today because it's the good timing for it as well, right? So we'll chat a bit about the band in a sec. But what about you, bro? Like you mentioned teenage years before. What I remember of you, if I've got it rightly, is you came up to Wellington from somewhere down south, right? Were you from the same town as Otis? Are you like a...
Otis Chamberlain and I went to high school.
Oh, my memory.
Your memory just came back to you like a lightning bolt.
Where is that, bro? Timaru?
So, in between Christchurch and Dunedin.
Yeah.
And we were like just outcasts, There was another guy called Phil Alexander who played bass, and Otis was the drummer and I was the guitarist. And we had a little trio, and I'm talking like 16, still at high school.
Yeah.
Otis, by then though, bear in mind, Otis is the best skateboarder in New Zealand.
He's another one. He's just good at everything.
He's about to go pro. He's a phenomenal artist that like people are just like, you need to go down that avenue, skateboarding, you'll just break your arms and your legs and all that. Plus, he can play all the drums on those Primus records, those early Primus records. And
play them like the dude from Meshuggah would,
But it's just like, can you get any more talented?
Yeah.
And he took me to Dunedin, and Phil arrived later on. We joined a band with G.
I remember G from Seven. Is that the band?
Yeah, Seven. Yeah. And we played this music in Dunedin that we were just like trying to do a Soundgarden thing. And Shane Carter was at the gig, just kind of,
being
checking
Shane.
us out at the Empire pub. And, we supported the Verlaines. I mean, that was like New Zealand, like royalty.
South Island, especially royalty, bro, where you were at the time.
Well, in Dunedin, you rub shoulders at the Empire with the Chills and 3Ds. Shane Carter was always hanging around. And I came from, Otis and I came from that. There wasn't enough happening, And Otis took off.
To Wellington.
Yeah, he took off to Wellington, and I stayed for the summer. This must be like 1995 or something. And then I just get this phone call like, Gabes, you got to come up to Wellington. The music scene is amazing. It's really happening. It's incredible. And of course, our favorite bands, She had like a hole. They were there, and like you couldn't even see these guys in the South Island. They were already like, you couldn't see anything in the South. Like I would grieve over not seeing Beastie Boys or the Helmet Show at Wellington Town Hall, or all these bands that would come through, and it would cost like $500 to do
jangly guitar music gets a bit a bit too much after a while. We
were pretty heavy, heavy musicians, and and Otis and I, we lived in that flat on Vivian Street together, trying to get something going for about a year.
Which I heard you refer to as, you said on that thing recently, was my flat. Oh, maybe it's probably better called a squat. And I was like, it's amazing how times change.
I think it has to be called a flat if it has a toilet inside inside the area that is the flat itself. And of course, you had to go downstairs and use the communal building toilet. I
used the same two landlords for that whole period of time. It was either Simon Manchester, the X23 leather guy, or Paul Knowsley, who's now a criminal lawyer. But they both ran a bunch of those. I don't think it was your landlord, and it was great, man. Yeah. Like what they provided. But I lived in one where we couldn't use one of the front rooms because it was over the road on Willis Street from the council building, and there shouldn't have been anyone living in there. So as long as we didn't
all those residential,
long as we didn't go into the room that was visible to the entire council building, we could live there. You know.
Well, at a certain point, I actually talked to it might have been like Andrew Tolley, if you remember Andrew Tolley. He was real smart. And I was talking about residential status and paying the rent, and he said, "Mate, you've got no toilet up there. You don't have to pay rent."
I think Otis lived there for another 10 years, mate. I'd come back. I'm sure he lived there. It was above the pub on the corner, right, just up from Hole in the Wall.
Corner of Cuba and Vivian.
Yeah, he lived there for years afterwards, man.
No, he lived on the second floor and that's when he got his art going and started doing that wicked. It was almost, that sort of out of world characters that I think Fat Freddy's Drop used one of them.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. His kind of signature style. Yeah.
I think he got some council stuff done in Wellington. That's, he got permission to make graffiti and all that. And
so I'm taking you off track a little bit there. So what were we talking about with the flat? You got to the flat. Oh, that's right. Moved to Wellington.
I found out that because there was no toilet, it was essentially commercial.
Ah.
So the landlord was actually breaking the law. So I changed the deadlock to get into the flat, and the landlord would come and get the cash. So you get the old knock, 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 right? And I can't remember the landlord's name. Sorry.
So I get it. You actually literally did turn it into a squat because you barricaded him out.
Yeah, and I said, mate, we're not paying rent because there's no toilet. You provide us with a toilet, and I'll pay you rent. And I could hear him swearing and cursing as he walked away because there was just no way to get a toilet up there without spending $10,000, right? Or maybe not $10,000, maybe 3.
And he probably
a lot of money.
Probably crossed his mind that if he pushed it a bit further, he could end up on the front page of the Evening Post. You know, you know what I mean? It's one of those stories you kind of had in there. Yeah.
The dodgy landlord gets caught. So,
23-year-old Gabriel Atkinson fitted a deadlock to his door when he realised the.
So I'm not sure if Otis had moved out by then, and. I'm not sure, but I never paid rent after that, and so I had a few people come through living with me, but then when I joined Weta, and that started to move along, and then it was like, oh, we're going to Australia, and then Aaron said, look. We've got to start rehearsing every day. We've got to be because at the time we were listening to like the New Living End record, and we're always listening to the advice of Shihad, which is you got to practice every day. You got to go through the set every day before you do that gig. At least a week's practice. So we sort of took that, amplified it.
Yeah, they're the masters of not fucking up.
Yeah, and then so the spare room on the top of the building became our rehearsal space, And it also became, thanks to, I believe, Ian from Fat Freddy's, he acquired an 8-track half-inch tape machine.
Yeah.
Which we then demoed natural compression on very quickly. Started to work the album and the vocals out. Sorry, the EP. Worked the EP out with Tom Larkin, and Aaron was working the vocals out. So it was a very musical place, but I didn't pay any rent, so I couldn't ask the guys for any money for rehearsal space because I wasn't paying rent.
Well, you're in the band too. We jumped ahead a little, but I'm going to guess it's just the nature of Wellington and the fact and our age and that period of Wellington that's come up on the podcast a bit, mainly because I lived it. But I was curious as to how in such a short period of time because for people who don't know, before Weta, the other band you're in just beforehand is going to slip my mind. I was just thinking about it today. Hustler. I mean, you were in a band with Andrew Tolley, who the whole time I've known of him is kind of royalty's the wrong word because he's such an egoless guy, but he's the musician's musician, right? So how do you hook up with him and end up in a band as such a young guy? Because he's a bit older than you as well, right?
10 years, roughly.
Yeah.
I would say, but. What was happening? I'd been singing in Scout with Craig Terrace.
Scout.
And because their singer just went off the deep end, and I don't know where he went. And I fancied myself as a bit of a singer, and they needed a singer, so I took the job on, and we did a couple of dates with Head Like a Hole, and it was fantastic. Got to sing at the power station, to the Head Like a Hole crowd. And when you sing, you're not limited to your guitar or anything. I must have done 40 laps of the stage. And
so this is a lot coming from because now, the thing I find with age is time moves a lot quicker. Like, for example, the just under 2 years I did the Brecky show on Active seemed like a really long time at the time, but you basically describe not moving from the sticks, man, that's unfair, but, bottom of the South Island.
Small town New Zealand.
Yeah, and you probably, when you initially get to Wellington, go, it's the big smoke, and then all this quite remarkable stuff actually happens that doesn't for everyone, right? Like you say, you end up performing quite big shows, and so it moved at a rate of knots, right?
But I had the same drive that led me to Weta.
Yeah.
I'm not insulting the guys in Scout or the guys in Hustler. I'm just saying that my drive was to get out of New Zealand.
Yeah.
And to keep going down or to keep just
momentum going.
Just jumping step stoning.
Yeah.
Because the guys in Weta, when I said, should go to Australia, and they were like, got to go to Australia, and then that was all that was said. Then it was a case of like, how do we actually do that?
I'll put it to you another way, man. Like, I know exactly the mentality you mean, and it's perfectly fine, man. Everyone's got their own things they want to do with life, or there's a whole bunch of stuff to this, and this is certainly not limited to Wellington, you know what I mean? It's a human condition, but that kind of mentality you describe reminds me of when I'd be back in Wellington after, like, say, 10 years or whatever, and you walk down Cuba Street, and someone says, what are you up to? You go, not much. They go, oh yeah. What have you been up to? Oh, not much. This isn't a knock on Wellington. People hear this and hear it wrong, but it's that sort of like same place, same thing, same place, same thing over and over and over. Do you know what? You know, now I'm not very eloquently describing the same thing, but it's a desire to kind of to achieve, to move on forward. Bang.
And definitely, like,
what have you been up to? Not much.
Yeah. Just cruising. Had a coffee at Midnight Espresso. It's wicked.
Yeah.
Played some pinball. With Carl Kippenberger and Jezza. It was wicked.
Hey, I'll tell you two things there. Man. I've known Jez for years, longer than any of you. Like, we go back to high school.
Yeah.
And but I hadn't seen Kippy for years. But through pinball, which came back, Jizzy and I found this bunch of guys that play pinball. I hadn't played it for like 15 years. I've been hanging out with Carl again. It's great, man. It's like, you know.
Oh, that's cool.
It is cool. It buzzes me out how long ago it was and how long it was between drinks. But
Mars Attacks. Mars Attacks.
Yeah, Attack from Mars. You got it, bro.
Sorry, it's Attack from Mars.
Yeah.
I reckon we put like $2,000 into that machine in the Midnight Espresso. We just kept trying to clock it.
Yeah.
As you do. when you're waiting around to rehearse and, waiting around for a gig.
You get into it. You're in Weta and, like you kind of already alluded to, for people who don't know, you're kind of natural frontman and a showman. What was the dynamic like with Aaron first off, Did you guys click, or was there a bit of toing and froing there in terms of that? Bit of jockeying?
Yeah, what Aaron's really good at, which no one knows, and he did do it when he was a teenager, but he never did. He did Eddie Van Halen when he was a teenager at the Rock Quest.
I was there.
Remember? Okay, yeah. So he used to do a fantastic Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah.
But there are two other guitarists who he could do just as well, and they are Stevie Ray Vaughan and Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah.
And I think it was like maybe our, sort of third rehearsal. I was still getting my amp warmed up, and he was ready to go, and I had my back turned to him, and he played some Hendrix, like one of the sort of like just a couple of moments of like the basic ones, like Purple Haze or something, nothing too technical or out there.
But he nailed him.
I swear that Jimi Hendrix was in the room.
Yeah.
I turned around.
Yeah.
I turned around and looked at him, and he stopped playing and looked at me as if to say, like, honky.
That's awesome.
Honky white boy, try that. And then I just looked at him like, whoa. And I was like, oh, you got to show me how to do that. And I'm like, you're not ready. But he did do Stevie Ray Vaughan again in a similar situation, and it was just like, as a guitarist, it's a nerdy guitar thing to attain that kind of proficiency, and Aaron had that.
Yeah,
he could do that stuff. So there was certainly no contesting that, because what I actually wanted to steal from him was how to play funk and reggae.
Yeah.
Which it took me ages to get it out of him, because he was just like too busy writing this, this opus, which would be Geographica. It had no name. The whole record was pretty much written before we left New Zealand.
Yeah.
There's only 3 songs on Geographica that he wrote in Melbourne, because once we hit the ground in Melbourne, we were running, man. We were touring, and we were just, advertising the product. But going back, the great thing that I bought was maybe that, Tookie's little dance on one side on the bass, my little dance on one side of the stage with the guitar, that balanced out a bit more. Plus, what a lot of people forget is that we had 2 singers, which meant harmony.
You had live rock harmonies, often just on albums, right?
Yeah, and a lot of people subconsciously are not really aware of it, because, obviously the main fans are watching Aaron, and then when the BVs kick in, they subconsciously go, that's the record.
Yeah.
Instead of like, when you're a musician, you go and see, what's a band that has difficulty with their harmonies is Radiohead. they have a lot of difficulties, like...
Do you mean emulating what they do in the studio live?
Vocally.
Yeah.
The music's not a problem.
No, I know you mean vocals. Yeah.
It's the vocal harmony.
Yeah.
And it goes back to the Beatles and that era where everybody sang harmony live, just like on the record when they recorded it live in the studio, and it's that was like the thing, and that was the secret that I always thought was great with the chemistry between Aaron and I, is that he would be singing away and then he'd be like, right, this is the chorus. Okay, let's work it out. What am I going to do? And okay, I'll do this. Nah, that's not working. What about if you do this? You do this. Okay, try doing this. And then eventually we just work it out and practice it and make it sound seamless.
Yeah.
So that you would, because I would even try and like change my voice to him. Because we have different voices, obviously.
But if you both sang it, this is a really nerdy question, I'll ask it anyway. If you both sang in your kind of natural, comfortable range, was there kind of a universe gift there and that your voices fit together, or did you have to work at those harmonies?
Well, we are on the record.
Which one?
Geographica.
Yeah, which one? Is it like, I'm saying, do your ranges comfortably sit together, or was it a bit of wrangly-dangling?
The EP was, Aaron was still working it out.
Yeah.
But by the time he got to Geographica, he was really cooking with gas, and we went to the vocal, we went to record the vocals in Sydney because Steve James was like, had this place that he liked, had a great feel and in the booth, the microphone was what he was after. Producers have these visions, and you just follow their vision. And if you listen to "Got the Jew's" a classic. Like even Steve James is singing in "Got the Jew."
Oh, that's a big part of that tune. The vocals,
Steve James has got this massive baritone. So at the very end of "Got the Jew," when it's going.
Yeah.
And there's a really deep voice going, that's actually Steve James. But like for example, there could be like, got the Jew, and then when it goes into step in, step out, there might be a double of me that gets fed in. It's all through the record where I'm literally doubling, and then Aaron's harmonizing, or I'm harmonizing, or we're both doing the harmony. Sometimes me, Steve, and Aaron were around the mic all together.
You're giving me so many threads here of things I want to chat about. So just quickly, kind of weirder trivia. I know the answer to this. I only found it out relatively recently. Yeah. People are like, what the fuck has got the Jew? And it actually, from what I've heard, it derives from another kind of person I've got really fond memories of in Wellington of that era, Dave Berry, right? Is that right?
I wasn't part of the band when this happened, but I of course I asked the question because I was like, what the hell am I singing? And because I had to sing that, because of the nature of, like, there were 3 vocal parts, I started it, and then Aaron would sing step in, step out, and then he would jump to kick back and ride the wave. But the whole time I would just be going, God, did you? Like, I would sing that, night after night, and then anyway.
Wake up in the middle of the night, eyes wide open, God, the Jew!
Yeah, I'm still singing it. At least I know what it means. But it comes from juju, which is African voodoo, magic, voodoo powers. Dave Berry was like saying to Aaron that he had performed a guitar take and that it had the juju.
But you kind of like, this is funny, things just coming full circle here. The title of that EP, Natural Compression, I don't know whether the title of the album came first or it was something you used to go around and say all the time, but I distinctly remember you used to go, Natural Compression. Anyway,
Yeah, well-
the reason. Wait. The reason that this relates to you got not quite telling that Dave Berry story properly is you've got to do it in Dave's voice because he's got natural compression. Because wouldn't he have been like, "Oh, that's called the juju." See, I can't even get that low.
Because I go down to the store and get some strings, man, and I just get a packet of those Ernie Ball heavy bottom light top. Cheers, man.
Suddenly you get a really detailed and earnest 10 minutes, very in-depth
Conversation about guitar
strings. Yeah,
it was straps.
love that, man.
Speakers, amplifiers, anything you want. I can tell you exactly what you need to know. The entire history of rock and roll guitar. And
He actually bought a hole in the wall after you left Wellington. You must have heard that through the grapevine.
No, he turned it into Valve Bar just before we left, and we performed a show there at Valve Bar.
Yeah, right.
So it was like and he decked it out with this wicked PA, and it sounded fantastic. So we played there, and then we got on a plane literally about 5 hours later, and went to Australia on a Sunday.
So what did Dave recorded? I just want to get the recording timeline right. So Dave recorded just quickly
at OMW. He recorded Weta doing some stuff before they went to York Street Studios in Auckland and spent $10,000.
They spent $10,000 that Aaron had borrowed from somewhere, and they
complete waste of money.
They came back, and Tom Larkin was really honest and said, "This is before you were in the band, right?" That's why I'm saying.
I wasn't in the group.
Yeah.
I wasn't in the group yet. This stuff must have been going on when I was doing Hustler and.
So it's a big wedge for anyone that age, and I guess 20 years ago, and they come back, and Tom Larkin's actually really honest and says, "Look, that's just not captured you guys right," and then they give it another crack with him. By which stage you're recording on that version? Is that right, at Marmalade?
Well, this is a funny story about natural compression. Is that yes, I did walk around saying, you want to be like one of those guys on the radio.
That's right. You say it to me.
What you got to do is you got to have a little bit of natural compression in your voice, mate, and then you've got this absolutely sensational. And it was sort of stolen from Harry Enfield's comedy sketch, but I did know that to lift your larynx, they did say, look, it's a form of like natural compression, like compressing your own larynx, so you can sort of, hey, that's absolutely sensational. I could sell you, and I was doing this for I was annoying people, but I mean I was pretty annoying just in normal mode, and then I got a hold of this thing that was annoying people. So if I found something that I could do that would annoy people, I would run with it. And Tom and Aaron, who are trying to get the EP ready, and I would just pop in and go, "How you guys going, mate? Is it working out for you? What are those lyrics like? Is the new song pretty cool? Oh, that's great, mate. Don't forget natural compression." And to this, you ask the guys, they thought I was full of shit, and they were like, "You're crazy. You're full of shit." So we get to do the EP at Marmalade, which I did not perform on, by the way, because like Weta and York Street, I had no recording experience. I went to do Let It Go, and I started performing, but I started recording and performing like I was on stage.
Yeah, right.
And it was hideous. So I got through the take, and then Tom just goes, exactly like he did the band, he goes, "Listen, Gabes, you're just really pretty shit at playing guitar to tape unless you can calm down. So if you sit down and calm down, we'll try it. How about, let's watch Aaron again." And so Aaron quickly finished Let It Go, and then I'm not sure what song we did, and I tried to do it sitting down, and I couldn't do it. I just couldn't stay in. I was too excited. I just wanted to go. Like this is the live show, rock and roll.
Yeah.
Recording in the studio and playing live are two different beasts. And I just stepped back, and the only guitar part that I begged for was the dropout in Where Have You Been, where it goes da-na-na-na-na-na, just before it goes totally crazy. And you can tell it's me because it's a completely different guitar. And I insisted on playing my guitar, and, Aaron had been playing John Toogood's Fenders for the whole recording. So it was this different guitar pops out, and you can hear that. But while we were there in Marmalade, this, like from the, he's like from the New Zealand Broadcasting, I don't know what the hell he was doing there, but he's like an old radio guy.
Oh, Marmalade was kind of full of those guys, yeah. So that's another story. So
he came in to have a listen.
Yeah.
And because I was still pushing this angle, I turned to him and he shook his hand, and then I went, "So you're in the radio industry, mate. How's it all going?" And he just goes, "You have got amazing natural compression." And then everybody erupted into laughter, like, this is ridiculous, because he was a well-known Wellington AM DJ.
Yeah, Marmalade. There's a sort of Marmalade's got that long history. It totally makes sense. Someone like that would have just walked on in. Oh,
so
you know what it would have been. I was thinking, this is so incidental for everyone, but fuck it, we'll go for it. Is what it probably would have been is because I was getting voice work there for a while. It's where a lot of ads were getting recorded for TV and radio. So he might have even been in the building, like recording a telecom ad or something. But that was the recording
absolutely.
studio. Yeah.
Probably, and knew that he could hear all this ruckus from these young boys and thought he'd pop his head in because it's fun.
Yeah, with his nicotine-stained hair. Yeah, those
guys. I was just like, I told you it was real. You've been saying for months that it's not real, and that's the real deal,
So I'm trying to think of the idiom. The idiom is something like a baptism of fire. So like that, in those few days, it sounds like you learned a hell of a lot, hella quickly about how to change your whole approach to essentially lay down music instead of perform it live, right?
Yeah, from watching Aaron.
And one thing I got from you, just to cut you off 1 sec, is it's about measuring yourself more physically, like being more controlled. What else is there to it? What are the other kind of fundamental differences?
Staying on the one.
Yeah.
With your drummer.
Yeah.
Massive thing, which I had no idea about, and this is where I was trying to steal all that funk stuff and reggae from Aaron. I was always nudging him, going, bro, play that thing, because he'd do things in the middle of Weta songs live that were like part of the Bong Master show guitar style.
Yeah.
You got
to know all the rules to completely break them, right? Yeah.
I mean, I've seen footage of him doing it with Bahori Buzz, where he's going, it's like, it's like Nile Rodgers.
Yeah.
Nile Rodgers. You just go, your brain explodes, and you go, how's he doing that? And so I was always nudging him and, come on, bro, come, show me. And he'd be like, oh, look, you got to do this and this and this. And I'd be like, thanks. And I'd practice. Take ages to get it, ages. Like, I think the reggae, it took me about a year to get the basic reggae beat going, which he learnt when he was like about 5 or 6.
You know what, man? Tell me if you reckon there's a connection here. But something that I heard you say in that chat with the boys on that rock conversation recently is that because this is weird sort of all these subtopics tying together. Like, you've talked about how Tom said, hey, like, calm down in the studio, you had to get more measured and so on. You're trying to learn essentially like the blacker end of guitar playing, and then you talked about how Aaron would just make you like sit on one note or one groove or one chord for like ages and ages and ages, and to me that is kind of part of getting into that reggae feel or that funk feel. It's just locking in to one thing until it's like almost percussive.
Absolutely.
Very different to rock licks, right?
I mean, like Tookie and Aaron were already telepathic because they're brothers.
Yeah.
So, and then Clinton was, obviously he was locking in with Tookie, and then I had to learn to lock into the three of them because I was just like trying to find my place.
Yeah.
So it was like, focus on the one. When we have a jam, focus on the one. Play something, and whatever you play, and it's generally the first thing that comes off the top of your head, just keep playing that. And that was the trick. Because
I realised, exactly the same time, I just realised now that, that's what Freddie's have built their whole thing off, is just the monster-long jam with that one thing that builds, and then the this and the that.
I remember going and seeing Bongmaster and just thinking this is the most fantastic, musical experience.
Yeah.
And they really were, like, amazing. And then Dallas started to, make a sort of a solo record. And, Dallas had been singing at the Matterhorn. He'd been trying to get into a group and do something. And I guess it was just, like, once Aaron stepped away and went, no, I'm going to follow the major label, I'm going to go with the rock and roll. I think, Dallas stepped in, and then they kind of changed the name. They got, their thing going. But I still think of Fat Freddy's Drop as
Bongmaster,
as Aaron's old band Bongmaster,
or even the Crackhead Experience, which they were for a while with that guy Benny Staples from Auckland. So I put it to this to you, man. It's come up on the show before, and I've talked about this era, and it's obviously it's nostalgia because I lived it, but it is documented that period of time was pretty fertile creativity wise in Wellington. So if I said to you, like, work with me here, if I said to you, like, when you first turned up to Wellington and someone said to you what kind of music you're into, like, the key genre you were into, what would you say it was?
Well, as always, Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, so rock. Let's go with that.
Yeah, but like the actual Wellington scene hated that because I was always like an antagonist. I was always trying to get people. Always trying to annoy people, basically, and get their back up.
But I don't think you're as militant as someone like Craig Terrace, who is quite sort of angry. Again, I just sound like I'm speaking ill of people. I'm not. He's great, but yeah, I think you got out there.
Yeah, no, I was more like
you're more cheeky, mate.
Yeah, I'm into Guns N' Roses because they're fucking awesome, and I love tight denim, and I love leather jackets, and I love screaming rock and roll.
We'll get to your trouser care in a second. So all I was going to say is, one of the things I noticed when I moved to Melbourne that is very different to somewhere like Wellington at that time is that you could have grown up
50 slices of pizza.
You could have grown up in Melbourne and just existed in that rock or whatever your thing is that floats your boat. That could be your scene for your whole life, your whole musical career. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the one thing I think is really to be said about a small city is people tend to exist in satellite scenes the bigger the city gets, right?
Absolutely.
So in other words, you smelled and tasted and went and poked and prodded all the different musical.
Like Wellington was just a little like cultural, like, boiling pot of music and art and poetry, and everybody was there because it was cool. It wasn't too arrogant of itself. Like, guys, I lived in Dunedin, man. I lived with some seriously cool dudes,
with that sort of pedigree. I get it.
The flying nun pedigree.
I read Shane Carter's book recently. I don't get through a lot of books, but it's interesting. I learnt a lot about kind of down there.
It's just different. Different. And I'm not having a slag on Dunedin. I'm just saying that when you're playing heavy rock or sort of a style that's really heavy in a jangly town, it's like, what are these guys doing? I don't know, but it's pretty good. But I don't think it's going to work with us.
Let's go. Yeah. Go. There's a lot. There's a few levels to that, because also I was thinking, like, also it's just the era, like, GNR and that was so huge, and then the way a lot of people put it is like grunge hit and everything. It's just like all that stuff got clobbered over the head overnight, you know, kind of era wise as well. So you guys moved to Melbourne, and
but I only did. Sorry to cut you off.
Yeah, that's right.
I did the Guns N' Roses thing because I thought I would get a rise out of people. But I loved, like, In Utero by Nirvana, and no one knew that, and I wouldn't tell anyone. And I just keep going with this thing, and I loved Helmet, and I loved PJ Harvey, and I loved old stuff, Beatles, Stones, and all that stuff. But I'd never tell them. I'd just go, "Nah, mate, Guns N' Roses, they're the only thing for me."
I think you may remember I did some engineering for you, and that was in fact your hearty rendition of Axl Rose for a Radioactive Sting, which I think was still on air when about 15 years later, when I was driving, I heard it and went, "Oh shit, that's right, it's Gabe's."
Yeah.
So you guys moved to Melbourne, and you sort of, from what I can gather, it was sort of a snap decision, right? You're suddenly in this much bigger city and in a different country. How were the early days, man? Was it all just like...
we flew to Sydney.
Yeah.
Did a fake signing. Went down to
what do you mean
Melbourne.
A fake signing?
Well, because they hadn't actually formed the contract.
Oh, like a camera, like a photo op.
Yeah. So we went to Sydney. We went to the Crow's Nest where Warner had their office, and then we all pretended in the photo to, like, oh, here we are signing, and then got taken out for lunch, remembering that we're still awake from the night before at Valve Bar. We're still awake.
Standard practice of the era.
Took the red eye to Sydney.
Yeah.
Took the red eye to Sydney. It was a beautiful flight across the Tasman Sea. Sorry, Slim Dusty slips out of me every now and then.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we did this fake signing, got a beautiful lunch, afternoon tea, got on another plane and flew to Melbourne, and we went to Grey Street and stayed at the Coffee House, which was a hostel.
Yeah.
So we went straight into a bunk bedroom.
St Kilda, right? Grey Street, St Kilda?
Grey Street, St Kilda.
Yeah.
On the corner of Fitzroy and Grey Street.
Yeah.
We went straight into a bunk room situation. So, 4 single beds. A bit like the Beatles and hamburgers, crazy. And we lived there for 2 weeks.
Yeah, right.
And that's where we found out about the $2.50 slices of pizza around the corner.
Yeah.
And we walked down Fitzroy Street and found the SB, which we were doing a residency at.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so the very first thing that Weta did was play every Thursday night with Motor Ace, who were the Mushroom signing rock band. So you had Warner signing rock band Weta, Mushroom signing Warner rock band Motor Ace. I don't think EMI had anything going at that time. Maybe... well, in Melbourne, it was just Motor Ace and Weta. Let's just put it that way. And we got put together to do a Thursday night residency, which they were still doing at the SB at the time.
Because just to quickly interject, there's a much longer... There's a history of, being able to play pubs and make a living in Aussie and not just be a cover band, right? There's much more opportunity there to play professionally on that pub bar level than New Zealand.
Well, you would basically at that stage, if you're a proficient rock band, you'd probably be able to get either by yourself through ABC, you could get onto Triple J.
Yeah.
And that would get you just enough exposure to get a couple of hundred people to come and see you wherever you went in Australia.
Yeah.
Because it's a nationwide broadcast station, absolutely massive.
Massive.
But then the next level up is obviously Triple M.
It's the government youth station that New Zealand never quite had. So it'd
be great if New Zealand got one, because the things that it could do just to give the younger something to shoot for is we're going to get on That's what we're going to shoot for.
Yeah.
You don't need a manager. You don't need a record company. You just need a really good song, well recorded, and that was the trick.
And so you go down to the SB to check out where your residency is going to be. Like, my first days in Melbourne were just very... I mean, I'd been in London for a brief period and stuff, just not too long, but that was where I was actually going to live. And
it's a cool city, eh?
Oh, yeah, but just those first few months, man, are so memorable to me, because it's just like, it just dawns on you how different it is to what you've known, you know?
Yeah. And if you
that's what you're sort of getting to, right, is that feel of...
Yeah, like the SB was like the rock and roll pub at the end of the universe, you know what I mean? Like down in the public bar at that point, it was punks only, and like I reckon I stuck my head in there for about 5 seconds and then realised I need to get out of here because I'm not a punk. And it was like hardcore punks. So
and there's stuff like
the rock music was upstairs in the middle bar, and
which pub was that?
It was called the Nimrod Lounge.
Oh yeah.
Which was the front bar, they'd call it, with the big window looking out over the Esplanade and the beach.
You got the Prince of Wales with the public bar downstairs.
Well, we played upstairs at the Prince of Wales.
I worked there for a while.
Yeah. Well, you should see it now. It's like totally, like fully swanky, you know, really nice.
So it's not a power station style venue now, because to me the Prince and that band room was like where you play when you're that kind of size band. I saw Queens of the Stone Age there before they were big enough to
that's pretty awesome, bro.
And I was getting paid to clear glasses. It's sort of like, that's the other thing.
Not that, I don't know what's happened to that room, but the public bar, the one that
downstairs,
you see on the street.
You know
how it used to be like, just dudes with, like hardened, tattooed tradies drinking pots for $2 or something like that, you know, and smoking durries out the front.
Yeah,
mate, how you going? But it's just very posh now.
Even that's different, man. We're going to go on for days to get self-indulgent about those first impressions of Melbourne. But yeah, that's another thing. Like just that old school pub culture. I don't remember it still being around in New Zealand. It's also eye-opening, no? Because you sort of like, Aussie and New Zealand aren't that different. You sort of grow up, you kind of think that, and then you live there and you go, there is actually real significant living differences, culture differences. You know, there's similarities, of course, but. Yeah. There's
similarities, but it's totally different buzz. It's a different buzz.
We'll get back onto the weather trajectory in a sec, but out of interest, like, you must have come back here regularly because of family and stuff, right? You come back on holiday?
I do, yeah. My mother's in Hawke's Bay, and my father's still in Timaru.
Yeah.
So I have to, visit mum or visit dad, and depends on what's going on. And of course, they want to see their grandson, so that's a big thing. Trying to get him back because he's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger so fast. You want to get him back so that they can. Hey, look at him now. He's like he's up to my hip.
I know I'm quite a few years late, but congrats, by the way, Dad. What's Dad's racket in Timaru? How come what's held him in Timaru? It's home.
He's actually a Yorkshireman.
Yep.
So for him, coming from Yorkshire and then leaving at the age of 17 on a $10 ticket with grandma and granddad, Timaru to him is heaven, coming from where he comes from. He comes from the hard knocks of Yorkshire.
Luxury.
Huddersfield lad.
I could see that direct link to Britain and you, bro.
well, my father was.
I'm the same. Dad came over when he was 13.
Yeah, well, that, like, I don't know if your father was into like blues music, but
no, he was into heroin and armed robbery.
That's fucking really cool. Sort of.
It loses its sheen. So you get to you get to Melbourne. You check out the SB, it's where you're going to have a residency, which basically what I was getting to before is unheard of in New Zealand. Let's face it.
Yeah.
For someone who is in a covers band to have a residency. Basically, I'm going to say to you here, what happens from there weather-wise in Aussie? Go, because a lot happens in a real short period of time, right? Kind of describe the rise.
We did a month, so we played 4 Thursdays with Motor Race, swapping headlines on the Thursdays. Then I'm not sure if we had maybe like a week off or something, so it was like July 99, then it was like August, then maybe we had a week off or something, then we were on the road with another Warner signing from Brisbane called Pretty Violet Stain that had Shane Nicholson at the front helm. He's now a country star in Australia. So he went from being pop to doing country, on his journey. But that was our first 2-week tour of the east coast of Australia. And it was some pretty cool stuff happened there. We had to learn, how to deal with each other in a Tarago. Well, not a Tarago. We hadn't got a Tarago yet. We were in a 12-seater van with all of our gear in the back cage.
The glamorous reality of touring, right?
Yeah, it's like the first time you do it, it's kind of exciting. And then we did a massive tour with Triple J because a band called Killing Heidi who were with Warner, they became like number one overnight. And they were supposed to be doing the opening slot for this tour called the Triple J Turn Up Your Radio Tour. So very quickly, Warner threw us in as the opener, and then it was Motor Race, an all-girl band. I can't believe I've forgotten. A listener
can tell me. Us.
Hang on, no, pre-show. What were they called? I've gone blank. That's terrible.
That's right. Message me later. Or record it.
Nitocris.
Record it into Messenger and I'll drop it in. I'll drop it into the edit.
No. It's Nitocris because I started seeing the drummer. That's why I forgot. I had a blank moment, like
PTSD.
So there was the Triple J Turn Up Your Radio tour was 35 dates over 40 days.
Oh my God.
It was like
drive, sound check, put head on pillow, 10 minutes, back up, drive, sound check, play, repeat.
Repeat, yeah. Maybe at some stage we had to get on a plane to get to WA. And
did you have a driver, or were you guys expected to do all the driving as well?
No, we had a tour manager. Yeah. And he would take a lot of the weight there, but Aaron would do a lot of driving. And Tookie and I didn't have our license. Clinton was getting his license, so he started to do a bit of driving later on. And I used to drive illegally because I had insomnia and couldn't sleep. I'd be like, like 2 a.m. talking to the tour manager going, how you feeling, mate? You all good, And then he'd be just like, I'm getting a bit tired. And I'll be like, let me get behind the wheel, mate. I'll be fine. No worries. I'm never sleeping. I'll never sleep. And I would just do like that 4-hour run from 2 a.m. till 6. And then Aaron would wake up and go, bro, why are you driving? You're not licensed. Get out of there. Pull over, I'll drive.
Fuck, it's a bit of a...
Scull a Red Bull.
A little bit of a dark comment, but fuck, it's lucky you guys came out of that unscathed, man. Just the driving part of it,
Thousands of kilometres covered.
Yeah.
And it's especially dangerous at night in Australia because the kangaroos and the wombats, like a kangaroo can destroy a car pretty bad, but a wombat will basically flip a car. You'll hit it, and it's like hitting a boulder.
Because of the shape of them.
Yeah, you just hit it, and your car just goes ping and starts, doing a Dukes of Hazzard 360 that you never land.
I had one, I think it's Hillsborough, I can't remember, somewhere beginning with H, just out of Melbourne, when it just first starts to go rural. I had...
Hillsville?
I had a kangaroo, it was like a cartoon moment. Night headlights. It bounced twice and then went off the road, and it was one of those a few seconds difference. Would have been a different story, but I was just it's because it's a really clear memory because I had no idea how big they are.
Big.
Right?
They're like 6 foot
Yeah.
in Victoria.
Yeah.
They get like we've got them out here because I'm in country Victoria, about 2 hours drive from Melbourne now.
Yeah.
And I could go outside now. The sun's going down, and they're all looking for their food and water because they're all waking up. And you just go outside, and you'll see a big. I think they're bulls, the males.
Yeah.
And they're like taller than me, and I'm 6 foot, and they are just meat and bones, and they look at you.
And muscle, man. Like that's again back to the cartoon thing. That's why they ended up with boxing gloves on.
Yeah, and they look at you, and then you look at them. And a friend of mine who grew up in country Victoria, he just goes, "You just talk to them like you're at the pub." So I do that. I just go, "Oh, g'day, mate. No, I'm doing some gardening here, so you need to go away.
Don't take my phone.
I don't want you around while I do my gardening. Now go away." And they get it. It's like they understand that you're busy doing something and that you don't want them around, and they go away. It's bizarre.
Hey, so for 90 minutes a night, there's a break from driving and you play a show. How were they?
90 minutes a night, there's a break
from driving and you play a show during that period of time. How were the shows? Because you're going to like rural Australia, right?
Well, in wetter,
yeah,
we would drive. Oh no, we'd drive longer than that.
No, but what I'm saying is, sorry, I've been too clever with how I phrased that. I'm basically saying, how did the shows go? And between all the driving, you're playing 36 shows over 40 days or whatever you said.
Oh, right. Yeah, I get you. Sorry, you'd been too intellectual, Lewis.
Yeah.
Remember that I'm just a guitar player from Timaru. Anybody here from Timaru? So, shout out to Gerald Stewart. My old buddy, my old drummer. In fact.
How are the shows? Sorry.
We were exhausted, and you just had to charge on by drinking, passing out, waking up, hungover, cold shower, get in the van, go. Now, that was my experience, because I was, I was coping with it that way.
Yeah.
And then I started to cope with it with much more heavier stuff.
Yeah.
Because, in Melbourne at that time, ecstasy was just really kicking in. And I started to use that as it was like we'd go away, and then when I got home to Melbourne, I would just go over
on the pingers
to the dealer, and we would just get wasted
on the googs, mate. On the googs. That's another Aussie expression.
Yeah, and just totally try and get as far away as possible from that awful experience that we just had. Like being on the road with Filter. Everybody's like, "Oh, that must have been great." It's like, no, it wasn't. For starters, the lead singer of Filter was a complete, like, self-centered, arrogant prick, and he would don't talk to him when he's sunbathing by the pool. That was the funniest one.
So is this with like you kind of subconsciously, I've been through dark periods of my life. Most people have, but you kind of subconsciously know, you're being self-destructive or whatever, however to frame it. But is this with the benefit of hindsight that you realise you were doing that with your off time owing to the touring? Because I would have thought at the time you're like, that's the rock and roll dream of like trying to get the band out there. Or was there like you knew you fucking hated it at the time? Because I would have thought that would be cancelled out by shit. We're going to make it big. A major label's interested in us. That's why we're doing this. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You start out that way, but then you get out there and it's fucking shit.
Yeah,
it's hard work, and I look at all the people that I was influenced by were all wasted. But they were taken care of by serious people who were serious about taking care of them, like the musicians were serious about playing. Like Peter Grant from Led Zeppelin was serious about taking care of those guys. He had serious security. He had people in place to make sure that, John Bonham didn't get so wasted that he couldn't do the next gig, because he could do it. Back then he could just not make it, but they would make sure that they had someone, a very strong man, bigger than Bonham, stop him and put him to bed.
But then
stop drinking and go to bed.
The flip side of you kind of romanticising that is, you could cynically say that those people outside of the band are kind of protecting their investment, and they're kind of holding a bunch of guys up with serious problems,
Our investment was not being protected to that level.
Yeah.
And we were, as David Benge once put it, during the Fur Patrol days, he said, "You guys are the most dysfunctional band I've ever known."
Oh, man.
And he's probably right, We didn't talk a lot. We talked through music.
Yeah.
Aaron would bring in a song, we'd work it out, we'd talk that out, we'd get the song going. But then, we didn't go down to Midnight Espresso as a gang and sort of go, yeah, it's got a new song happening, da-da-da-da. We sort of had that, like we had our own little ponds to go and swim in. And, I connected with, for instance, Aaron seemed to connect with Tom, and I seemed to connect it with Carl because of our passion of, pinball and vodka and pool playing late at night at the Hole in the Wall. It's just...
I totally get the wider point you're making, is that you went from having all your own kind of pockets in Welly, but it all coming together in a remarkable way on stage, and then suddenly you're in a completely different country, a completely different city with a whole bunch of much higher expectations, and you're all thrown in a tiny little van together to try and be happy family.
Yeah, good luck with the Partridge Family, and you just... you got to do the hours, you got to do the time on the road, and you got to do the gigs. It's all part of the deal, but it wears you down.
Clinton said something I thought pretty remarkable, and again in that video I watched recently, that again, considering he kind of has had an almost kind of Lars Ulrich buzz going on with getting that band, where it needed to go at the time. That all these years later, he realised that maybe Aaron, that the oft-told tale, which wasn't not true, was that it was Aaron's mental health, full stop, but that actually that guy had quite a lot of foresight and pulled the plug for the benefit of all of you based on everything you've just said. And I can talk about it now, it's public, because it was mentioned while Tookie was in the room. He was drinking to really dangerous levels. There's a whole lot going on. Do you think there's anything in that, Matt?
I think, I just think
even if subconsciously?
I think that if we just got sent home to Wellington, because, I'd moved on and become a Wellingtonian, I believe. You know what I'm saying? I felt like I was part of that town. And it's different when you come from a small town and you leave home, and, didn't work for me. Wellington was really cool. But, I made friends outside of all that music stuff as well in Wellington, all the crew down Cuba Street and all the cafes, the people that worked in those cafes, a lot of them were musicians as well, but, there were other people.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that if we got sent home, maybe, every 3 or 4 months, maybe every 6 months, just like for a slap in the face, like wake up,
Yeah.
remember your family, remember where you're from, remember. And here it is. It's right here in Wellington. And nothing's changed. There's Midnight Espresso. Go have a coffee. And
the bottom bucket on the fountain still doesn't tip properly.
Yeah, exactly. And the Matterhorns, they've extended out the back and got a beer garden. Yeah. Woo, that's crazy.
So it's a shame. I mean, this is such a great conversation. There's still like half the stuff I had to ask you on the list.
Okay.
But we're getting nearer the tail end. But let's not forget, for people who maybe first off hearing all of this, that there were significant developments in Australia, and it wasn't just a never-ending circle of tours to 8 people in a country pub. Like you did start to rise quickly, right?
Yeah.
Like you did start to play bigger shows.
Well, we had a major label behind us who were pushing.
Yeah.
And they were pushing because it was pretty clear, I think, that at that stage it was pretty clear that there was probably 5 or 6 singles on the album.
Yeah.
Really, in reality, if you look at it, it's probably about 5 or 6 that are pretty rocking and, really ready to go.
So you're clearing your text.
Sorry, it's just my phone went bing, and it's the messenger, but it's on silent.
That's cool, man. I think we've done well with the audio side of things.
Didn't hear it?
No, I heard it, and when I saw you go over to check it, and no one would have ever known, but I just thought I'd...
No one would ever know. Just edit, just cut and paste.
I think that's the beauty. You're supposed to leave all this stuff in, aren't you?
You can leave it in.
Hey, for my own benefit, because you talked briefly about quite a funny story when Tookie finally met his hero Flea backstage at the Big Day Out, but he was a little bit too Wu-Tang on booze to remember it. But I just wanted to know, because I listened to this, there's a dude, if you haven't heard it yet, ABC made it, there's a fucking amazing 5-part doco on the Big Day Out, like a podcast, and it goes into a whole lot of different stuff about the Big Day Out. But one of the things they talk about is how they really made an effort to, make it a welcoming environment for all their touring artists and backstage and stuff. Like, what was it like being on that side of the Big Day Out, man? Like, I think they were incredible events as a punter, but...
I experienced it about, main stage, I would have experienced it 5 times, I think. And, that's just through Sheha, really, and just getting through the gate without having a AAA pass. And then they would just, I don't know, with the Chili Peppers thing, Warner's made that happen.
Yeah.
Because the Chili Peppers were a Warner's band, and obviously we were all like, we want to see the Chili Peppers.
Oh, and I thought you actually, I didn't know that part. I thought you guys had actually played at least a big show on that circuit and kind of ended up at those after parties and all of that.
We never played the Australian Big Day Out. We played the New Zealand Big Day Out.
Yep.
So we would have played the probably the 2002 Big Day Out.
I think you guys, if you didn't play
in Australia,
in 1990, maybe the 99 one, beginning of the year, if you guys didn't play, then Clint and Aaron were there, because I got a lift back from it to Wellington with them. So maybe you played...
We played the Auckland Big Day Out.
99?
Maybe the 2000.
Yeah.
Because I didn't join the band till... Foo Fighters. The Foo Fighters was late 98.
Where to save me? I remember my lift. It could
have been 99.
My flaky lift had left for Wellington from Auckland, and somehow there was a space in a car with at least 2 wetters.
Okay. I want to go back to the Big Day Out and experiencing the side of stage on main stage.
Yeah, right.
This is the first time I saw what fame is. and Grinspoon, who are a massive Australian rock band, which I later, in 2007, I worked for them and played guitar. But at this stage, they were like the big rock band.
Sure were.
They were massive.
They were.
And you would look out, and there was, at the Flemington Showgrounds, there's like 25,000, 30,000 people there. But right up the front, there's a solid sort of 7,000 people. And the front 10 rows, all their mouths are going in complete unison with Phil Jamison's vocal. And that's when I started to far out. They know the word. These are the diehards, you know?
On a scale that you're not used to
from
seeing.
Melbourne.
Yeah.
And then that would happen, at the next show for them and the next show. And later on, I got to actually tour the big day out as a guitar tech. And I got to see some bands and experience that on an extremely high level, like Muse, side of stage, standing with the lead singer from Kasabian and Lily Allen.
There's great footage.
Bizarre.
There's great footage that, to me, captures the kind of knife's edge of getting those performances right. It's being so high octane and so on, and it's footage. I'm 99% sure it's a big day out that someone filmed of Johnny playing and the Shihad guitar tech getting something wrong, and this whole interaction happens really quick, and it's like you get a real sense of being. You're distracting me by looking down at your phone. We'll finish it up shortly.
No.
You see, you basically,
my mate's in hospital. My mate's in hospital. He's okay, but my mate's in emergency in hospiel. But you can tell.
What I was saying is, you can basically see how.
I can't get to him in Melbourne. You know what I mean? I can't help him.
Yeah.
But his sister just told me that everything's okay.
Hey man, just to close on up, so again, it's quite a big topic, but I know from the album being re-released and hearing you guys talk lately and stuff that, it was 20 years ago. Yeah. You guys are in your 40s and stuff now. Like, the story I hear is that, and I wanted to get into this further, but I'll just kind of paraphrase it, is that it reached the point where when it finished, it was like you guys had a show in Picton, you got off the Nelson or whatever, you got off the Picton ferry and basically walked in four directions, right?
Correct.
And was there just years of rift after that, like before any of you started communicating again? Because I remember seeing Den Heyer again at the Prince of Wales. He worked in the bar downstairs, and he'd just sit at the bar after work and just stare into the distance, and I knew what was going on. It was just like he had to process it for probably years afterwards,
Yeah, I got my flight, I think I haggled someone to get me out to the airport so I could get my flight back to Melbourne. I know that Aaron and Tookie stayed in Wellington. I think that was always the idea, was to look after Tookie.
Yeah.
Aaron, and Aaron was also, looking after him and himself. And then Clinton got that plane ride back to Melbourne too. Obviously, pretty pissed off, getting told in New Plymouth that your lead singer doesn't want to be in the band anymore, and then having to do 11 more shows with Shihad was really tough. But they were really good shows because we were all really angry. So we'd suddenly got that Metallica anger in us. And like we were like, I reckon on a couple of nights through that tour, maybe that New Plymouth one, after Aaron told us what was happening, because news travels pretty fast. So suddenly Fur Patrol are staying around to watch us play, to see what's going to happen. Shihad are coming early, so we got both bands side of stage, all crammed into a little scouts hall with like 400 or 500 people from New Plymouth who are just like, thanks for coming, we love you. But secretly we were all just like going, "Rrr!" And it was just, we were really on fire with anger.
Yeah.
But a great relief as well, I think, because you have to put health first.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But like, I mean, you and Clinton were back in Melbourne. You didn't exactly you wouldn't have stayed. Like everyone just needed cool off time in their corners, right? Whether that was years or weeks or.
Oh, look, it took till 2008.
Yeah.
Or 2008 for Aaron to seriously consider doing something with the project.
Yeah.
And then, I hadn't talked to Aaron since then. Oh, no, sorry. I spoke to him when he was in Kara Knife Fight because he stayed at our place because Tookie let him crash on the couch. So he hung out with me and Tookie and, I should say Tookie and me, and my brother came because he wanted to see Kara Knife Fight at the ESPY. And I had to go to work, so I missed the show, and I'm disappointed about that. Never got to see Kara Knife Fight, but I did get to catch up with Aaron later on, and we sort of stayed up all night on the guitars like the old days,
awesome.
singing songs, having a bit of a laugh and having a drink. And then I spoke to him for the 20th anniversary. But, in between, I knew he was doing what he was doing because I would watch him.
Yeah.
I knew he was doing Hoary Buzz because he was pushing it on Facebook, and, Tookie was here in Melbourne, and he and I tried to do a few projects and couldn't get them off the ground because we were just 90s rock.
Hey, man, I'll finish up pretty darn shortly, but yeah, those lockdown videos he did before he passed were like completely off the rails in a lot of ways, but completely brilliant at the same time, and I'm glad
live to Facebook.
Yeah, his videos. Yeah, there's a lot of wisdom amongst the booze in those videos, and I've watched a couple of them a couple of times.
There's a song in that, Lewis. There's a lot of wisdom amongst the booze.
That's right. And I wanted, because the sign of a great conversation, bro, is probably about half the things on my list I didn't get to, but that's fine. I just wanted to quickly say,
we can keep going if you want.
Did a bit of sleuthing on you.
We can keep going if you want, Lewis. It's fine.
Did a little bit of sleuthing on you, and you've started a music school over there. You've had a music school for quite a few years, teaching little kids.
8 years yesterday.
Man, that's awesome. You got a whole bunch of tutors and based in St Kilda.
It all was on this excellent, rise up to COVID. We had a steady kind of 80 to 120 students every year, and then COVID came, boom, and not a lot of people like Zoom for lessons, as you can imagine. And you and I trying to have a guitar lesson in this situation, it's impossible.
Yeah.
So it's like impersonal in that way because music is so personal.
Yeah.
So we lost a lot of students when COVID hit, but we kept it together enough and got through that nasty stage for Melbourne, and we reopened our doors when the government were happy. So the school reopened, and it's just been going along, and it's 8 years old. And
well, I mean,
wow.
8 years sounds like a business, that's not going anywhere, man. Like that's amazing. Where did the inspiration come from? Like, did you just start doing lessons and it kind of like grew, or was it a plan from the beginning to have a school?
I'd been in hospitality, and I've been working with a guy, and he's after a couple of minutes, it must have been like 2 or 3 years. I was at the Railway Hotel.
Oh, the Railway,
in South Melbourne.
Yeah,
and one of the guys there, he just said, he was a guitarist. He said, "Oh, do you want to start a music school?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, cool." And then we started that up, got things going, and my friends at the Vineyard got us, a leg up by, subleasing to us in St Kilda.
Oh, is it in the Vineyard building?
What's across the road?
Yeah.
But the Vineyard owners have an office in that building. So we got a leg up because I had, the connection there because we wanted the school to be in St Kilda.
Yeah.
So that the mums could bring their kids to the school and then go to the grocery store.
Yeah.
That was the sales pitch. It was like, half an hour lesson.
You enjoy teaching, man? I teach. I talked to. Do you remember Darren Watson, guitarist from Wellington?
Yeah.
He teaches now as well, and I talked to him about it on the podcast. But it's made me grow heaps too, teaching. You enjoy it?
Awesome. Not on Zoom.
No, but going to a pre-COVID world, like, did it? Do you get a lot out of it too?
I was passing the flame to a bunch of people that don't even know Eddie Van Halen,
Yes.
And that was my main vision. He died too, like a couple of months after Aaron. I was like, oh, can this year get any worse? Next thing you know, Jimmy Page is going to go,
Gudinski from Mushroom Records passed tonight.
I know.
Crazy.
That's a big... that's a big player in Australian music there.
Huge legacy. Hey, listen, I will wrap it on up because there's also a narrative to these. It's not just a random session of questions. So we have reached a beautiful...
What's the narrative?
Oh, you wait till you hear it back. Come on, you heard the Aaron one. You're working with an artist, mate.
I know.
It's been great catching up with you, man. That's that expression. It's been a long time between drinks.
I appreciate.
But I was going to ask, bro, it's
reaching out.
Thanks, man. It's like from all of that experience with Weta, and then how it just kind of stopped so quickly, and reconciling everything. Like, what did it kind of instill into you going out into the world after that, man? Like, what did you take from that experience?
The first time we broke up, or the second time?
What was the second time after those big day out shows in 2009? Do both, mate. I don't care. Do what you want.
The first time I was I really liked the idea of being in Melbourne.
Yep.
Because there's a music scene. So I thought, well, there's a chance for me to jump on the bandwagon with another band that needs a guitarist. And I actually ended up working for Maton Guitars. So I ended up building guitars for about a year. And then I started working with my girlfriend at the time, Kelly Malone. And I still had that connection with Warner. So we kind of got a record deal happening, but the record company didn't like it because it didn't have drums or bass, because we were doing that Gillian Welsh thing. So just the two guitars, two voices. And
so like the yin to the yang of Pendulum.
Then, and then convincing Tookie to come over, starting a rock band with him and the drummer from Motor Race. Just always slogging it out with music, and always keeping music at the forefront, or trying to anyway, whilst being in hospitality. And then, as I said before, the teaching came along. That seemed like a great idea because I just felt like guitar music was like nowhere to be seen. And I thought, I've got to pass the torch. I've got to start passing the torch. Recently I've, had the pleasure of I had to wait 6 years, to be honest, to finally have the pleasure of being with a drummer that his drumming style is just primo. So I've been working on music with him and a bass player, and we're a trio called Crimson Pie, and we like to play 80s rock like Guns N' Roses and all that stuff. So kind of you get to this age where you don't care anymore about what you're doing. You don't care about what's popular, or how do I get on the radio, or you got to play like this, you got to be like the Kings of Leon, or you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do that. And it's just like, it's just doing my head in. And then
it's great being over 40.
And
No, totally. It's that reaching that. I don't care as much about stuff.
I just
anymore.
don't care what people
I care
think.
about the important stuff. But I don't care.
I care if I like it.
I don't care about the bullshit. Yeah.
I care that I like it, and I do. So it's okay if no one does, because I'm having so much fun playing, music that I created with people who I enjoy being in a band room with. It's just awesome.
Awesome. We'll end there, man. And if we ever get over this COVID thing, next time I'm in Melbourne, we should actually do this, IRL, as the kids say. Take care, bro. All right.
Cheers, bro.
See you, man.